Red Bull's reign at the top of Formula One once looked unstoppable. Max Verstappen, fresh off 4 world championships, seemed untouchable. But now, the cracks are no longer hairline fractures, they're gaping holes. But is this just a temporary blip or the beginning of a dramatic end? And with Aston Martin lurking in the shadows, could Max really be plotting a stunning switch? Red Bull's 2025 season began with a thunderous silence after a dismal Bahrain Grand Prix. Verstappen, usually a master of turning chaos into control, found himself wrestling with a car that simply wouldn't cooperate. From brake issues to tire degradation, from pit stop failures to strategy misfires, everything that could go wrong did. It was the kind of race where finishing 6th actually felt like an achievement, which says more about how far the mighty have fallen than anything else. And it wasn't just one bad weekend. The warning signs had been there as early as the end of 2023. The RB20, which once masked its quirks with Verstappen's brilliance, started becoming more beast than machine. Newey, in retrospect, had been waving the red flags all along. He voiced concerns about the car's development path, but those warnings apparently fell on deaf ears. As he put it, the direction Red Bull was heading in just didn't sit right, and now, from the outside looking in, he sees the consequences unfolding exactly as he feared. It doesn't help that the RB21, the current car, is a continuation of that flawed philosophy. It lacks balance between the axles, is a nightmare through corner entries, and has been eating through tires like they're donuts at a driver's briefing. And that's not just speculation. Red Bull's own technical director, Pierre Wache, admitted the car simply isn't responding the way their data said it would. Internally, tensions are high. Verstappen's manager was seen having a visibly heated discussion with Helmut Marko after Bahrain. Autosport reported that the team was in crisis talks before Verstappen even finished his media duties. Sure, Max is only 8 points off the championship lead, but the vibe is off. You don't need a telemetry readout to see that, and you can bet your helmet that when Newey left, he didn't just take his drafting pad, he took a chunk of Red Bull's soul with him. The big question now isn't just, can Red Bull fix the car? It's, can Red Bull fix the trust? Because, as it stands, Verstappen's loyalty may be running on fumes. When Adrian Newey speaks, the paddock listens. The man's designs have built dynasties: Williams, McLaren, Red Bull, and his departure earlier this year wasn't just a blow, it was a seismic shift. Until now, he's stayed relatively quiet, watching from the shadows as his old team fumbled. But then came his interview with Automotor and Sport, and it was the verbal equivalent of a mic drop. Newey didn't throw punches, but he didn't have to. His calm, almost surgical breakdown of Red Bull's problems said it all. He revealed that even during the final stages of 2023, the car was already becoming more difficult to drive, an issue he'd flagged, only to be met with indifference. In classic Newey style, he didn't name names or point fingers, but the message was clear. They didn't listen, and now they're paying for it. From his new vantage point, conveniently at Aston Martin, he called out the direction Red Bull chose to pursue, subtly implying that a lack of experience among the remaining technical leaders may have led them down the wrong path. Think of it like your favorite chef leaving the kitchen, and suddenly your Michelin star restaurant is serving undercooked spaghetti. Even Verstappen, with all his talent, can't fix a fundamentally flawed machine. Newey's insights cut deeper because they're not coming from a rival throwing shade. They're from the man who built Red Bull's winning DNA. If he's worried about the car's design philosophy and the team's leadership, why shouldn't Verstappen be? And let's be honest, when the most successful designer in F1 history suggests the car is broken, you don't argue. You either fix it or you follow him out the door. Publicly, Red Bull insists everything is under control. Christian Horner keeps assuring fans that the team understands the problem and that solutions are on the way. But the more he talks about tools not correlating with track data and mishmashes between simulations and reality, the more it sounds like a company trying to convince itself more than the public. There's also the power unit situation. Red Bull Powertrains is meant to symbolize the team's independence, but there are whispers in the paddock that development isn't going as planned. Ford's involvement helps, sure, but this is still Red Bull's first dance with hybrid engine manufacturing. Meanwhile, Mercedes is cooking up what many believe will be the grid's best engine, and Honda, who knows their way around a hybrid, has already bet on Aston Martin. And here's the twist. Internally, there's a clear power vacuum forming. Adrian Newey is gone. Pierre Wache is under pressure. Verstappen's trust in the system appears to be fading fast. Sergio Perez is out, and Yuki Tsunoda, while talented, isn't exactly the veteran co-leader you need in times like these. Meanwhile, Verstappen's manager is going toe-to-toe with Marco in plain view. On the outside, Red Bull still wears the suit of a world champion team. But pull back the curtain, and it starts to feel like the early warning signs of a collapse. Yes, they could turn it around. They've done it before. But this time feels different, not just because of the car, the tools, or the engine, but because the glue that held it all together is gone. And in Formula One, when you lose the trust of your star driver, everything else starts to fall apart really quickly. For years, Red Bull and Honda were the unexpected love story of Formula One. After McLaren dumped Honda, Red Bull took a gamble, and it paid off. 4 straight championship seasons, an unstoppable engine-chassis combo, and a sense of stability. But all good things come to an end, and when Honda announced it would return as a works engine supplier in 2026 for Aston Martin, it sent shockwaves through the paddock and straight into Red Bull's garage. Here's why this matters. In 2026, Formula One enters a new era of regulations, and whoever nails the new power unit formula early could dominate for years. Red Bull Powertrains, still in its infancy, now has to compete with engine giants like Mercedes, Ferrari, Renault, and Honda under the most complex rule set in F1 history. The plan was always for Red Bull to build its own future, to become a truly independent constructor. But independence comes at a cost, and that cost may be precious time and painful mistakes. Honda, on the other hand, is back with a vengeance. They've learned from the McLaren era, they've matured, and now they're partnering with Aston Martin, a team already on the rise, and now bolstered by Adrian Newey's genius. It's not just an engine deal, it's a full-on statement of intent. Honda wants to win, Aston Martin wants to win, and if you're Max Verstappen, looking 2 years down the road, suddenly the grass on the other side starts to look very green. More importantly, Red Bull's current hybrid unit was heavily based on Honda's tech, but without direct factory support, and with key Honda personnel moving to Aston Martin, Red Bull's 2026 engine could be a gamble with championship-level stakes. And Max? He's not the gambling type, not when titles are on the line. At first glance, a Max Verstappen move to Aston Martin sounds insane. Red Bull gave him his shot. He's won everything with them. But look beneath the surface, and Aston Martin starts to feel less like a downgrade and more like a golden opportunity wrapped in British racing green. Think about Max himself. He's not just racing for trophies anymore, he's racing for legacy. 3-time world champion, record breaker, dominant force. Sure, but joining a team like Aston Martin and building them into a champion? That's Schumacher at Ferrari territory. That's how legends are made. Even from a personality standpoint, it fits. Max thrives in no BS environments. He wants speed, control, and trust. If Red Bull's internal politics keep spiraling, and if Aston can offer a clean, focused, ultra-competitive operation led by two men he already respects, Newey and Honda, it becomes less of a question of why would he leave, and more like why would he stay? Now, before we start painting Aston Martin green with championship champagne, let's not forget, Max Verstappen isn't just any driver. Red Bull built their empire around him, and for 4 glorious years, he paid them back in gold. Walking away from that level of trust and dominance isn't something you do lightly, even if the wheels are wobbling. Christian Horner still believes in the long game. He's pointed to Red Bull's deep technical bench and their historical knack for bouncing back. And, to be fair, he's not wrong. They've done it before, and they've got more wins under their belt than any other team in the last 5 years. Max knows that. He's not just a driver, he's been a developmental force, shaping cars around his feedback with surgical precision. There's a comfort there that no other team can offer overnight. Then there's loyalty. Yes, that word still exists in F1, surprisingly. Max has grown up with Red Bull. The team took a massive risk debuting him at 17, gave him time to grow, backed him through the chaos of 2021, and supported him even during the Perez drama and off-track politics. Maybe there's still a part of Max that wants to finish the job at Red Bull, to right the ship and win one more title on his own terms. And of course, there's that pesky contract. Technically, he's signed through 2028. Sure, there are exit clauses and legal gymnastics, but ripping up a deal that big? That's not a small ask, even for the most wanted man in motorsport. So yes, Aston looks shiny, but Red Bull is still home. At the end of the day, this is less about who Max Verstappen is leaving and more about what he's chasing. Red Bull gave him speed, gave him dominance, but in this moment, they can't promise him certainty. And Max doesn't strike you as a guy who's gonna wait around for a wind tunnel built in the Cold War to suddenly fix itself. Aston Martin offers a new challenge, a fresh start, and a team that's going all in, with Newey, Honda, and everything else a world champion could want. But even then, leaving isn't just about equipment, it's about control, influence, and belief. Still, until Max says otherwise, Red Bull has a chance. A slim one, but a chance. If they fix the car, stabilize the politics, and show genuine direction heading into 2026, they might just convince the Dutch Lion to stay in the den. But if they don't be surprised if Max pulls the trigger, and when he does, it won't just shake up the grid, it'll change the future of Formula One. So, what do you think? Should Max Verstappen stick with Red Bull and bet on a comeback? Or is it time to jump ship and go full send with Aston Martin? Let me know what you'd do if you were in Max's shoes down in the comments. And hey, if you enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe for more F1 drama.